So it is that time of the year, ladies and gentlemen, where we are going to talk about the middle of the season, the studs, the Zach Morris type players, and we're going to talk about the duds, the more Screech Powers type players. So at this point, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Shifty Sports Talk. This is your boy Shifty right here. This one goes out to Niner fans who were near, far, NFL fans, sports fans. You're all welcome here. Today, we are talking about the 49ers midseason, the studs and the duds. We're going to start off on the studs for the offense. I think there's only one name that really comes to mind when you think of the 49ers offense and who's made the most plays and who's made the biggest plays. It's Deebo Samuel, obviously. 49 catches so far in 8 games, 882 yards, 4 touchdowns. Those are crazy numbers in 8 games. That's basically a trajectory of over 1,700 yards in a typical 16-game season, but now, of course, we've moved on to 17 games a year. Let's not forget that Deebo Samuel also has a rushing touchdown and another 22 yards. So overall, Deebo's accumulated over 900 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns. So when you extrapolate the numbers, you're talking basically 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns. Crazy good. The other guy, got to give those offensive linemen some credit here. Let's throw out some names here. But number one, it's Trent Williams. Some people thought, hey, you drafted Javon Kinlaw. Maybe you should have just kept the pick and taken Tristan Wirfs, and I see the reasoning behind that. But Trent Williams, and there's a reason why we re-signed Trent Williams and gave him all this money. Let me throw this out to you. And I know that PFF isn't gospel. They're not the be-all and end-all. But the number one offensive player of the year, according to PFF, is Trent Williams. He's the highest rated offensive player in the NFL. 96.1 out of 100. Zone blocking, get this, zone blocking, Trent Williams, 99.5 rating zone blocking. That is outrageous, insane. The dude is a stud. I'm glad he's here in San Francisco. Love him. That's all I got to say about Trent Williams. He's a beast. Let's not forget, on the offensive side, one of our biggest studs, a rookie, late-round draft pick, Elijah Mitchell. 470 yards rushing, averaging over 5 yards a carry, 5.3, has 3 touchdowns. Throw in another 73 receiving yards. He's well on pace to go over 1,000 yards, could possibly get double-digit touchdowns. For a rookie late-round pick, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Great for Elijah Mitchell. The guy is awesome, and I'm really glad he's on our team, and he's a big reason why maybe I wasn't super happy with the Trey Sermon pick. Even, it's one of those things where Shanahan and his offense can always get great production out of late-round picks. So it's one of the reasons why I wasn't crazy about the Trey Sermon pick. However, we're talking studs here. A couple of mentions I want to throw out there before we move on to some of the offensive duds. Laken Tomlinson on the offensive line, he's just been a rock for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. An absolute rock. He's been their left guard, been really solid. The last couple of games, Brandon Ayuk has really stepped up against the Cardinals. He had a great game outside of the fumble, but a great game. So I think he's destined for a huge second half of the season. I'm going to give a shout out to Trey Lance. Rookie, we see how some of these rookie quarterbacks are playing. Trevor Lawrence, not great. Zach Wilson. Mike White's outplaying Zach Wilson in New York. Justin Fields is now starting to kind of get it going a little bit. Mac Jones, and kind of somewhat as predicted, is the most pro-ready, but he has a good situation around him. Mac Jones has been pretty good. But Trey Lance has looked very good in limited time. So let's give a little shout-out to the rookie. Last but not least, Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk. Just a stud. He does everything well. Love Kyle Juszczyk. Got to move on to the offensive duds now. The Screech Powers of the offense. Trey Sermon, 3rd-round pick, basically has zero impact. Clearly the coaching staff doesn't trust him at all. He is number 4 on the depth chart at running back behind Elijah Mitchell, behind Jermichael Hasty. Now Jeff Wilson Jr. is back. So seemingly looking like a bit of a waste of a pick. Along the same lines, Aaron Banks, second-round pick, offensive guard out of Notre Dame. Now, I'm not ready to write him off yet. I think Aaron Banks should start getting some starts this season. Against the Rams, what I'm hoping for is what the 49ers should do. Offensive line is you have Trent Williams, Lakin, Alex Mack. I think they should go for Daniel Brunskill because remember, last year Brunskill played Donald very well. And then I think at right tackle you should have rookie Jalen Moore. After that, the next game is against Jacksonville, a relatively easy game, even though they just beat the Bills. But after that, I think you move Brunskill to right tackle, where he's played way better, and then get Aaron Banks in at right guard. Get him some snaps, get him some reps, get him some confidence. But he's got a long way to go. Duds, Jalen Hurd, I mean, let's just get rid of him. He's got to go at this point. I mean, just can't be healthy, can't play. This is a tough one here because I just showed off the jersey that I bought, but somewhat of a dud has to be George Kittle. Because I was really hoping this year would be the year that Kittle is going to show that he's not going to get hurt. He's going to make big plays. This might be, a recency bias, but Kittle just came off an injury against Arizona. We're moving the ball. Bam, fumble. But I think Kittle, if he wants to be, and look, Kittle is held to a higher standard than most other guys. So Kittle is George frackin' Kittle. He needs to be making plays. He's paid like their elite tight end. He needs to, play like it. So George Kittle, a little underwhelming this year. But I think he could have a big second half of the season, assuming he stays healthy. Now we got to move on to the defense. And this is a much more difficult part, in my opinion. It was pretty hard to find a lot of studs here, but of course, with the defense, I think we have to start with Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa, 7 sacks on the year, 12 tackles for loss. He's our one consistent threat in terms to get after the quarterback. Unfortunately, it seems like opposing offenses have realized this, and I've seen him on countless times have double teams, a couple of times even triple teams, because they know that no one else on our defense can get consistent pressure. But Bosa is just a beast. I think at the end of this year, we're probably going to sign him to a long-term deal, and it makes sense because he's one of the best players at his position. Let's give a shout-out to some other guys on the D-line. Eric Armstead has actually been pretty solid. He's not DeForest Buckner good, but he's pretty good. He's a couple sacks, bunch of tackles for loss. He's been solid on defense, just solid against the run, solid against the pass. He's been like a consistent guy, and he's there. He's always there, so I like Armstead. Of course, he had the big sack against Arizona. He actually should have had 2, but, DJ Jones, let's give him a shout-out. 1 sack on the year, but 5 tackles for loss. DJ Jones can have that quick twitch where he just gets off the line and, bam, tackle for loss. Couple of guys who I want to give some shout-outs. Talanoa Hufanga, the rookie safety out of USC. I think he's played pretty well, considering his draft slot and what he's been asked to do. I think he's been solid. I think he's a guy that, when I think of Hufanga, I think of what we've done with Marcel Harris, but I think he's a lot better than Marcel Harris. I think he'll be linebacker in the box, safety, but ultimately, in a year or two, will actually have made a lot more plays. The other guy who I really miss, Dre Greenlaw. The first game of the season, he basically played maybe a half of football, and he looked incredible that first half. The duds on the defense, and there is no shortage of them. I'm going to start off with the obvious guys. Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick have both been just absolute garbage. I think when you sign these type of guys, these are these should be the veteran guys who stabilize things, where they're not going to give up the awful play, but they're not going to be elite. They're not going to be your Jalen Ramsey type elite by any means, but they're not going to give up a consistent defensive pass interference. They're not going to give up the big play. They might give up some shorter plays, and they'll give up some plays here and there, but they've both been dreadful. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they should both be arguably off the team. And I think Lenore and I think Ambry Thomas need a lot more playing time. But they've both been terrible. Fred Warner, no impact plays. I've said it 100 times. No impact plays is never, just not even there. I looked at his stats, Fred Warner, and no interceptions. His tackle for loss is not that impressive. Just, he's recovered a fumble, but no forced fumbles, and that's one of his fortes. And just been very average. And for what he's making and for his high profile, it's incredibly disappointing. So this is similar to a George Kittle on offense, where the standards and the expectations are so high for these guys, and as they should be, because they're getting paid at that level, and they're often seen at that level, but they're not getting, they're not playing at that level. Another couple of guys I want to mention, and this should have been foresight, we should have seen this coming, but Jason Verrett and Dee Ford hurt again. Dee Ford has been solid in the play time, but who knows if he'll play again. Jason Verrett out for the season, first game of the year. Jaquaski Tart hurt again. So I have to say these guys are duds, even though we should have seen it coming, but I think they were maybe hoping to get some more production out of it, so not good. And then lastly, one of our free agent signings, Samson Ebukam. Now, of course, look, and you guys maybe saw my reaction, but against the Bears, he had a big play against Chicago, big sack. Other than that, he's been invisible. He's got beat on some plays really badly where he's fallen victim to the fake handoff and then the quarterback runs it and he's gotten beat real bad. But yeah, so not a great signing, not looking great so far, but hopefully they can turn it around. And look, here's the thing, and I harp on Fred Warner, I harp on some of these other guys, and I hope they prove me wrong because I'm a Niner fan. And look, we're 3-5. We're only one game out of the playoffs. But look, I'm not thinking playoffs, but I'm of course, I hope all these guys prove me wrong, come up good, we can win some freaking games. Look, here's the thing, and I'm really not trying to convince myself or even you guys, but look, maybe we pull up an upset against the Rams Monday Night Football. They didn't look good against Tennessee. Maybe we win there. Then we play Jacksonville. Then we're 5-5, and who knows? But I'm not thinking playoffs. I am, but I'm not expecting playoffs. I'm hoping for playoffs, but. Guys, a lot of players got to turn it around, got to get better. And I hope they do. I hope all these guys who I've labeled as duds come up and play great. I hope that game against the Cardinals, against Colt McCoy, really just lit a fire under these guys. Just really good. I think they just needed a kick in the ass. And hopefully that was it. That was the ass kicking that they needed. I'm going to leave it off at this. I saw an article from The Ringer. I read it, and I think they made a really good point about Kyle Shanahan, why did we bring Kyle Shanahan to San Francisco? Because of his offensive play calling. Not his ability to identify talent. It was because he can call an offense, he can get points, put up points, and put the team almost always in a position to win. And I think we need to go back to that. I think that Shanahan arguably has too much of a say on the roster, and I think that John Lynch and Jed York, and they all need to sit down and be like, look, John Lynch, and I think Lynch needs to I like that he has Adam Peters, but I think he needs another guy like a Martin Mayhew, who was on the staff, but who's since left. But another veteran front office guy who can just really guide Lynch, and in terms of give, some assistance in terms of evaluating players and whatnot, and evaluating how you build the roster. But, there's so much that goes into that, and if we can get Shanahan, look, focus on the offense. I know you're the head coach, but focus on the offense, oversee D'Amico somewhat, and make sure that he's doing what he's got to do. But just make sure that, look, the offense is clicking, because the offense has been very inconsistent. But at that point, folks, I'm going to wrap it up here with the studs and duds. I do have a bit of an announcement to make, which is not the best one, is that, unfortunately, I'm not going to be streaming the Monday night game against the Rams. There's been some circumstances with my work schedule where I'm going to have to work that time. But rest assured, the game after that against the Jaguars, I will be streaming that. I'll be doing my typical reviews, against the Rams, and I'm obviously hoping big time for a 49ers win. One of the things that I'm hoping to do with the Rams game is actually to put out a reaction video to the longer highlight videos that they get posted on YouTube. So that's about that. And honestly, at this point, guys, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps the channel out. And I'm just going to leave it at, guys, I'm going to catch y'all on the flip side.